What if I told you that the modern nation of Iran plays a significant role in the Bible's grand narrative of prophecy and world events? Often, when people think of the Bible, they focus on places like Israel, Egypt, and Babylon. However, few realize that Iran, known as Persia in biblical times, wasn't just another empire. It was a nation specifically mentioned in prophecies that helped shape the destiny of God's chosen people. Iran's story in the Bible goes far beyond its modern political image, and its role stretches back to some of the earliest biblical accounts. The Bible reveals the origin of the Iranian people, their rise to power, and their critical part in shaping both the Old Testament and prophetic visions of the future. From the lineage of Noah to the reign of Cyrus the Great, Iran has played a central role in key events of biblical history. Perhaps most astonishing is that God used Persia, a nation led by pagan kings, to deliver Israel, rebuild the temple, and fulfill prophecies spoken centuries earlier. Iran's biblical origins. To understand Iran's biblical roots, we must go back to the story of Noah and his descendants after the Great Flood. According to Genesis 10, Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, became the ancestors of all the nations of the earth. One of Japheth's sons was Madai, who is believed to be the ancestor of the Medes. Genesis 10 verse 2. The Medes later became closely associated with the Persians, and together, they formed the foundation of the Medo-Persian Empire, one of the most powerful empires in world history. Madai's descendants, the Medes, settled in the region that would eventually become modern-day Iran. The Persians, emerging from the same geographical area, would later rise to prominence, but both groups shared a common ancestry. Therefore, according to the Bible, the ancestors of the Iranians came from Japheth through Madai. This connection places the Iranian people in the biblical narrative from the very beginning of post-flood history. The rise of Persia in biblical history. Fast forward several centuries, and we find the rise of Persia, a kingdom that would play a crucial role in the Bible. The Medes and Persians formed an alliance under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, who founded the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the First Persian Empire. At its height, the Persian Empire stretched from the Indus River to North Africa, encompassing many of the major regions mentioned in the Bible, including Israel, Babylon, and Egypt. However, Persia's significance in the Bible goes far beyond its military and territorial strength. Its true importance lies in the way God used it to fulfill his promises to the Israelites. The Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, had conquered Jerusalem in 586 BC, destroyed the temple, and taken the people of Judah into exile. The Israelites remained in Babylonian captivity for 70 years, as prophesied by Jeremiah 25 verses 11 to 12. Then came Cyrus the Great, a Persian king who conquered Babylon in 539 BC. Everything changed with his rise to power. Cyrus the Great, God's chosen instrument. The Book of Ezra opens with a decree from Cyrus allowing the Israelites to return to their land and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Ezra 1, verses 1 to 4. Cyrus declared, "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah." Ezra 1 verse 2. Astonishingly, Cyrus, a pagan king, was named over a century earlier by the prophet Isaiah as the one who would carry out God's will to restore Israel. Isaiah 44 verse 28 refers to Cyrus, stating, "He is my shepherd and will accomplish all that I please. He will say of Jerusalem, 'Let it be rebuilt,' and of the temple, 'Let its foundations be laid.'" In Isaiah 45 verse 1, God refers to Cyrus as his anointed, a title usually reserved for the kings of Israel. This is a profound moment in biblical history. Persia, a nation outside of God's covenant, became the instrument of God's redemption for his people. This event not only marked the end of the Babylonian captivity, but also the beginning of Israel's restoration. Cyrus's decree was more than a political act. It was a prophetic fulfillment. The prophet Jeremiah had foretold that the Babylonian captivity would last 70 years. Jeremiah 25 verses 11 to 12, 29:10. When Cyrus came to power, he fulfilled this prophecy by allowing the Israelites to return and rebuild the temple. The rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, under the leadership of Zerubbabel and with Cyrus's blessing, was a key step in Israel's restoration. The Book of Esther, Persia as a protector. Persia's role in biblical history doesn't end with Cyrus and the rebuilding of the temple. The Book of Esther provides another powerful example of how Persia was used by God to protect his people. During the reign of King Xerxes I, also known as Ahasuerus in the Bible, a plot was hatched by Haman, an official in the Persian court, to exterminate the Jews living in the empire. Haman's hatred for the Jews drove him to manipulate the king into issuing a decree that would allow for their annihilation. However, through God's providence, a young Jewish woman named Esther had become the queen of Persia. Encouraged by her uncle Mordecai, Esther took a bold and dangerous step by approaching the king and revealing her Jewish identity, pleading for the survival of her people. Esther 4 verse 14 records Mordecai's famous words to Esther, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther's intervention resulted in a dramatic reversal. King Xerxes, upon learning of Haman's treachery, ordered his execution, and a new decree was issued allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. This story, recorded in the Book of Esther, is celebrated annually during the Jewish festival of Purim. It reminds us how God used Persia, and particularly Queen Esther, to preserve the Jewish people. Persia in biblical prophecy. The Bible doesn't just speak about Persia's historical role. It also places Persia at the heart of prophetic visions about the future of world empires and God's ultimate plan for humanity. One of the most powerful examples of this is found in the book of Daniel. In Daniel 2, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon has a dream of a great statue made of different materials, each representing a world empire. The silver chest and arms of the statue represent the Medo-Persian Empire, which would succeed Babylon as the dominant power in the ancient world. Later, in Daniel 7, Daniel himself has a vision of 4 beasts, each symbolizing an empire. The second beast, a bear raised up on one side, represents the Medo-Persian Empire, symbolizing its dual nature, the combined strength of the Medes and Persians. In Daniel 8, the prophet sees a ram with 2 horns, one horn representing the Medes and the other the Persians. This ram charges in all directions, symbolizing the Persian Empire's vast territorial conquests. However, the vision also includes a goat with a prominent horn, symbolizing Greece and its king, Alexander the Great, who would eventually conquer the Persian Empire. These visions place Persia at the heart of God's prophetic timeline, showing that the rise and fall of empires are part of his divine plan. Persia's legacy in the New Testament. Though the Persian Empire fell to Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, its influence continued to be felt during the New Testament era. One of the more mysterious connections between Persia and the New Testament is the story of the Magi, the wise men who visited the infant Jesus in Matthew 2. Many scholars believe that the Magi were likely from Persia and may have been Zoroastrian priests, part of an ancient religious tradition that practiced astrology and the interpretation of omens. Their journey to worship the newborn king of the Jews highlights Persia's enduring connection to the biblical narrative. Iran in end-time prophecies. Many scholars and theologians believe that Iran, referred to as Persia in biblical prophecy, will play a key role in end-time events. One of the most significant prophecies involving Persia is found in Ezekiel 38-39, where the prophet describes a coalition of nations that will come against Israel in the last days. Among these nations is Persia, which will join forces with Gog of Magog and other nations in a massive battle known as the War of Gog and Magog. This prophecy, often seen as a future event, depicts a final confrontation between the forces of evil and God's people, with Israel at the center of the conflict. While the exact timing and nature of this war are subjects of debate, the inclusion of Persia in this prophecy suggests that Iran's influence in the region will continue to have spiritual significance in the future.
If you found this video enjoyable, please consider liking and sharing it. Additionally, subscribing to this channel will ensure that you receive more updates in the future. Thank you.